Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into football reports, and we're going to talk to my guest today, which is Dave McCarthy from the McCarthy Report. And welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Yeah, so usually, Dave, I ask my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Well, I went to Northeastern University up in Boston, and then finished up at William Patterson afterwards. So yeah. Before that, I went to a prep school in Connecticut, Milford Academy, which was in Connecticut at the time, to work on my grades and try to get a little more known recruiting-wise. So,
okay,
yeah.
Good. So let's just go back into high school before we get into what you do today. Mm-hmm. In high school, when did you start thinking about college? Was it freshman year, senior year? When did you start thinking about it?
For me, I started thinking about college well before high school, because I always loved college football. So I always knew I wanted to play college somewhere in football somewhere in college. So I started thinking when I was a kid watching. I'd watch the games on TV, so I always envisioned myself playing somewhere in college. I was a big Notre Dame fan as a kid, and so, of course, I dreamed about that. But I realized at some point, I wasn't going to be good enough to play at that level. So, but I started thinking about college sometime before high school. So.
Oh, okay. And were your parents involved in picking a school with you, or did you?
Yeah, they were my parents were very supportive. My father had knowledge from his days. He attended Notre Dame. So he was very knowledgeable about, the college football world, going, even at a early date. Wow. So, so my parents were both very, very helpful and very supportive.
Now, was Northeastern the only school you picked, or did you have other schools that you were looking at?
Yeah, I was looking at a few other schools, Columbia University, a few other schools, a few other local schools, Trenton State at the time, College of New Jersey now, Widener University, a few other schools. But I picked Northeastern because they showed the most interest in football-wise.
Oh, okay.
I walked on there. I wasn't offered a scholarship, but I did walk on, and I played there for about 2 years, and then I.
Did you play at William Patterson after that?
Yeah, then I felt I wasn't getting enough playing time at Northeastern, to be totally honest. So I decided to go to William Patterson and finished up there for the last 2 years.
Great. So now, how does one go from graduating college to becoming the owner of the McCarthy Report?
That story definitely starts with my father, Dennis McCarthy, who was the driving force, and he founded the McCarthy Report, what's now known as the McCarthy Report. He started that around the time I was in high school in the mid-'80s, sending out handwritten, he was old school, so it was in the mid-'80s, well before the internet was big, handwritten recruiting notes to colleges around the country, and it grew from there. It took off from there, in the subsequent years.
And solely just football players? Yeah,
we've always just solely focused on football. That's our passion. That makes the most sense, business-wise also. So the other sports are kind of recruited in a little bit of a different way. Mm-hmm. We always just focused on football.
So tell everybody what the McCarthy Report is. What is it?
Sure. The McCarthy Report is we're scouting / recruiting consultants for colleges of all sizes nationwide who contact us when they want to find out the top prospects in New Jersey high school football of all classes, from seniors to freshmen.
Wow.
They contact us. We send out email. We're in constant contact with colleges and stuff. Email, phone calls, or social media is
So
big
they
now.
tell you,
Yeah.
I need this many linebackers, I need this many
correct.
running backs.
Yeah. Basically, they're looking for pretty much the way we do it is we scout all positions. We're constantly watching tape, speaking with high school coaches around the state, interviewing prospects, looking at highlights and game tape, etc. Basically, we prepare our scouting lists based on who we think are the top prospects every year. We put a ton of work into it. And colleges basically would subscribe to us, and we send our info via email on the top prospects in all over New Jersey, from Cape May up to Ramapo or Mawa or whatever. Yeah, from the top to the bottom, and all points in between.
Wow. So and you go to every high school?
As much as humanly possible. Yeah. Now, with the internet, it's easier to contact kids, and when we started, basically we started in the early 90s. My dad would send out handwritten lists in the 80s, and then by the early 90s, colleges really we got a good reputation, and colleges liked our work and started getting paid for it.
Yeah.
We eventually grew it into a business. It started as a hobby, grew it into a business.
Yeah.
And by the early 90s, schools started paying us. And those early days, we would, it was a different world. In general, society was different back then. The internet wasn't as big. And
right.
So we would have to do a lot of the legwork ourselves. We would have to physically go all over the state, many trips all over the state, down, we were based in Bergen County, in Lyndhurst and North Arlington, up in Bergen County. But we would go all over the state. We would make road trips out of it, myself and my father, and sometimes we would bring a scout or two, guys to this day still helping us. But we would make a road trip out of it. We would visit high schools. We would literally get game tapes, the old VHS DVDs, stacked high.
Wow.
Some days we would stop.
And the high school coaches would give it to you?
Yeah, we always had a good relationship with the high school coaches around New Jersey. Very helpful, because they knew we would do a good job with getting the word out on their prospects. Getting the more exposure was definitely welcome. And the coaches knew, 9 times out of 10, the coaches were very responsive, and would basically give us the game tapes or highlights or whatever, and info on a kid. We stopped at many. We would plan it out and make a day out of it, going down to this high school near Atlantic City, and then shooting down to maybe Glassboro High School, in South Jersey, shooting up to Camden, then coming back to Mercer County.
Wow.
So yeah, we would make whole days. Sometimes I remember we would stop at 5 or 6, 7 high schools in a day.
So now, what's in the report?
Yeah. Info on who we feel are the top prospects. So we have hundreds of prospects in any given year in the report.
Is it their background?
Yeah, everything. Or bio on a kid, as much info as we could, humanly, as humanly possible to gather on a kid. We would get as much info, speak to the coaches, evaluate game tape ourselves. We have a good eye for that.
Is there 40 time in it? Is it their
height, weight? Because it's football recruiting. Height, weight, 40 time is big, is huge.
How about grades?
Academic info is very important, which I stress to kids all the time when I speak to them. Academic info just it widens it just widens your reach with schools who could recruit you.
Yeah.
The better your academics are, the more colleges could recruit.
So how about awards, like all county,
everything.
all state?
Yes, all the total bio on each kid, and then
and then statistics.
Everything you can imagine on what a college coach would need to make a judgment on a kid. Mm-hmm. Was he all state?
And then you rank each kid in
yes, and then
each
based
position?
on our evaluation, I do it myself, and we have 2 or 3 scouts that help us because there's hundreds of kids at every given class to go through, so it's a lot of work. Yes, we rate based on our evaluation on how we think a kid will develop and what we think they could reach in college. Basically.
So now, how many high schools are in New Jersey?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I know about any given year about 350 play high school football.
Wow.
So it's a lot. It's for New Jersey is not a big geographic state, but it's a lot of high schools.
So now, let's just take quarterback for instance. Yeah. That means there's 350 quarterbacks in the state.
Well, potentially. Now, not every school has a quality quarterback, who's going to make our report, but
gotcha. So you just pick and choose out of the 350 the quality ones
correct.
That fit into your report,
correct.
And then
who we think could be.
So it could be 100.
It could be 100. It could be 50.
Depending on.
Depends on the.
And then it goes every single
year.
It goes every single position then, all the way to kicker,
correct.
Punter.
Every position that a college will be interested in, and yes, special teams are big. Every position from quarterback, running back, receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers.
So
defensive backs.
How about the kids themselves? Do the kids themselves, can they contact you and say, hey?
Correct. A lot of times now with social media, I personally love using Twitter. Twitter is a great tool for us. It saves us a lot of time. Basically, mostly now, kids contact me via Twitter. So, yeah, and coaches too, and colleges. So, Twitter's a great tool. The president loves Twitter, and the McCarthy Report loves Twitter because you can get your message out, basically.
Yeah.
So, for better or for worse, Twitter has really been, has its detractors, but for us, it's been great, to be totally honest. So,
and you work just on the state of New Jersey?
Yes. As far as I know, we're still, to this day, the only service. There's several services that do nationwide or do other regional parts of the country. There's people who do it in Texas, California, various parts of the country. But yes, we are the only New Jersey
company
centric. New Jersey, yes, we strictly do New Jersey to this day. So yes,
that's great. So now, how many kids on a given year are in your report? 1,000, 2,000?
Yeah, on any given year, probably around 400, 450, who we think have college potential, could play at the Division I level. They call it FBS now. The big schools like the Notre Dames, Miami, Iowa, and then down to the Division III schools like Montclair State level, FDU, Madison, schools like that. So and everywhere in between. So yeah. So.
And what are the college coaches? What are some of the questions that they'll ask you that they're looking for? What are some of the things that they'll ask?
Well, to be honest, a lot of the recruiting is basically, we call it in the business the measurables, like we touched on before: height, weight, speed, which is measured in the 40-yard dash, is a big barometer of your speed. And athleticism, athletic ability, that's huge. But it's the measurables, and then it's a big thing is academics, especially depending on the school, on the college and their academic requirements. Academics are big. Character is big, which I'm an old school guy, so I like to see that. I like to see character being,
Is that part of the report?
That's part of. Well, yes, yes, it is. I put it basically if we get reports that a kid doesn't have a good character or has gotten into trouble, then he will most likely be downgraded.
Gotcha.
Even if a kid is a terrific athlete, we will downgrade him.
And now, what happens with the report? Is it emailed to each one of these coaches?
We send it via email. For the subscribers, it's a subscribers-based service.
Right.
So we have our price structure that colleges, and everything is regulated by the NCAA. Every year I have to do a whole fill out forms and get certified, recertified every year by the NCAA, which we just did recently. So it's the NCAA compliance office. It's called regulates us. We have to, meet certain criteria
Sure.
basically, so that to make sure we're, above board.
Correct.
So yes, and we do it through that, and we send our info, basically scouting reports, like we spoke about before, the bio on a kid and any other info we could gather. We several times a year. 5 or 6 times a year, we do updates, and we send it out to all our subscribers around
So
the
now,
nation.
what's the difference between a Division I, Division II, and Division III school at the college level?
Yeah, at the college level, yeah. Well, it's basically scholarships that they can give out. And the Division I schools, they call it FBS. Those are the big time schools everybody knows. Notre Dame, the Rutgers is on that level.
Right.
Penn State, Southern Cal, Alabama. They could give, I believe they have a total of 85 full scholarships that they could give out. So you're basically getting, a free college education, and which on some schools it's $50,000 a year, $30,000, $40,000, depends on the school, but it's.
And then what happens at a Division II level school?
Yeah, Division II. The difference is they could give grants. They could give partial They basically grants. So they take off money from the tuition. They do not give full scholarships as a larger school would give.
And then Division III, what is
Division III is basically based on grant and aids or need. It's based on they don't give out scholarships per se. Some schools will take some part of the tuition off. A small amount. But yeah, it's.
And you've placed kids in all over the place.
Over
Ivy League schools.
Most of the Ivy League subscribes to us, so we're proud of that. Most of the Ivy League and Patriot League and other very good academic institutions, those two conferences, most of those schools subscribe. So yeah, we've placed kids. I'm constantly speaking to college coaches, giving my recommendations, and they appreciate our info.
And do they give you the requirements at their school? So if the kid, let's say a kid doesn't run a 40 in, let's say, 4.2 or 4.3.
Now, yes.
And they run it in 5.2, that kid is more of a Division III type of athlete?
Correct. A lot of it is based on measurables, like if you're like a quarterback under 6 foot, you better be, you better be Doug Flutie, or you better be or Kyler Murray, or you better be terrific. If you don't meet the way the recruiting world is, if you don't meet the certain criteria, physically, then you better
drop the level.
Yeah, for the most part, For the most part, there's always exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, yes, it's.
So do you get kids that are secondary kids, like they make the team, but they're not really playing a lot?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, that's the way it is. Even kids who we think in high school are great players. There's so many great kids out there, and it's a big country, and there's a lot of great football players out there. Some kids who are terrific in high school don't always start. It's just the way it is. It's just the nature of the beast, because so much competition.
Now, how were you in football in high school?
Yeah, I was a pretty decent little scrambling quarterback at little Lyndhurst High School in Bergen County in the mid-'80s. I probably thought I was better than what I actually was, to be honest. So I was always, my dream was to play college football, and I did do that at Northeastern and William Patterson.
So when you go to a place like Northeastern and you're playing football there, what's a sense? What was the sense from high school to college? What did you feel like when you're on this football team?
Yeah.
What are you going through? What are the thoughts that you're going through?
Well, it depends. I'm sure it's different at every school depending on how successful the football program is or how much interest. I'm sure it's different from Northeastern. We were in the 1AA level at the time. The school no longer has a football team, but it was a great school. That particular school was a city school. It was a city campus up in Boston, which I loved. It was a great campus. But it was more of a commuter school, and the football program wasn't that huge of a deal. You know, they were more of a basketball school actually. But it was a fun. I enjoyed it. Met some great guys who I still keep in touch with to this day, and we had some great players too. We were a 1AA level, and still there were several kids who played in the NFL from the team I was on in 1987, 88. So.
So would you say it's the camaraderie of just being on the team?
Yeah, for me it was a lot of fun. You know, it was like I said, I met people who still know to this day. So you're lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And it was just a great experience. I enjoyed it immensely, and I recommend it for any prospect. If you have dreams, you love football, play I totally recommend it. Great experience.
Yeah.
Loved the school and everything, and I had no complaints. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Now compare that Northeastern to William Patterson. What was the feel when you got to William Patterson?
It was a different level. William Patterson was Division III. So it was a different level. Northeastern was there was more talent up there. Like I said, at my team on Northeastern, there were 3 or 4 kids who wound up playing in the NFL for a time. So there was quite a bit of talent. William Patterson was a different level, but we were successful. We had a great coach, Jerry Gallagher. Was a great coach. I still speak with him today. Very good team, but it was a different level. It wasn't the scholarship level. But but it was a different type of school. Whereas Northeastern was a city school, a great right downtown Boston, which is a great city, and William Patterson is a little more suburban in Wayne, New Jersey. So it was a totally different atmosphere. But I enjoy that also. I met people who I still friends with to this day also. Yeah. So when it was
And how
I enjoyed the school.
How about academic-wise? What do you see the difference in the schools academic-wise?
Yeah, it was similar. They were similar academic-wise. It was decent. I was never a top student, so it was work for me, to maintain decent grades and stay eligible. But and that's a big part too. You have to manage your time. If you're a college athlete, time management is probably the number one thing to maintain your grades, maintain your academics.
And is that something that's in the report as well, managing time?
No, because we as of right now, we market it and we sell it just to the college coaches. Gotcha. Yes. So not so much about the athletes right now.
Now, a lot of college coaches talk about transcripts. Is that something that's in the report? Is the high school transcript?
No, in certain occasions I will look at a transcript. We do not look at all the transcripts. There's only with hundreds of kids that we go through. There's only so many hours in a day. But we get a general, some speaking to their coaches and speaking to the kid, we get a general idea. And I interview as many kids as possible to get a feel for his academics, and then it's basically in the honor system in a lot of ways.
And how about film? A lot of parents talk about film.
Yeah,
is the film on YouTube now, or is it the film?
Yeah, there's a website, Huddle, which all the colleges use, all the high schools use. Huddle, HUDL. Great website. It saves us a lot of time. What I mentioned before, we used to have to physically go around the state gathering game tape, and it was very time-consuming and expensive. Now, 99% of it's internet-based, so it's very easy to do, and we're constantly watching film. Yeah, mostly Huddle, but also some other platforms.
And does that get attached to
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
report
we have
as
a
well?
link. We have a link to their highlight page and a link to their social media. So, like I said, Twitter is a big recruiting tool, which all the colleges look at, and most of the 99% of the kids are on Twitter. So, that's the reality in 2019. So,
yeah. So now, the report, is it something that's going to continue? That you see this as a future thing, that it keeps on building?
Yeah. Yes, we have definitely some plans. Like I said, we were forever we were just New Jersey based and just focused on New Jersey. We do have some plans and some tentative plans to branch out to other parts, like maybe make it regional, maybe the Northeast. So possibly that. Also, possibly, I've always, in the back of my mind, always thought possibly getting into NFL scouting, with various teams. I do know some coaches, some NFL coaches used to subscribe to our report back when they weren't coaching college. So I have some connections with teams. And then I've also often thought about maybe working for like a college program in the recruiting department. So there's various ways we could go, but yes, we are definitely looking towards the future and possibly branching out to other parts of the country.
Good.
So,
well, we're coming to the end of our show,
Yes.
and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the students out there that they need to get on a report like this? What advice do you want to give them
Well, so much of it is basically your physical ability. That's the secret. If you don't measure up, this is for the Division I level, the big time level they call it. There are the fortunate few who are going to get the Division I scholarships. In New Jersey, every year, about 60 to 70 kids get the Division I scholarships. But there are, after that Division I level, there's still a lot of scholarship money out there on the lower level schools, the 1AA, FCS level, Division II level, like we said, even Division III. So if you're not recruited by the big time Division I schools, there are still a lot of opportunities out there for you. And I would be proactive. We call it the 3 Ps. Be proactive, persistent. Don't get frustrated. And then the 3 Ps.
There's got to be one more.
Yeah,
P.
there's got to be one more, but I'll think of it later. We'll but yes, proactive. A great resource is the NCAA website, ncaa.org, which has a ton of recruiting info. Has the recruiting calendar. You could. NCAA.org is a great resource for any parent.
Good.
With the recruiting game. So it's a business. Go where you're wanted and where schools show the most interest. So, yep.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
And don't forget the academics either. Academics are very important. I tell all the kids.
Good. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Anthony, thank you for having me.
Yep. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.